Hello and welcome once again to another hobby tutorial on Battlefront TV. This time around we're doing the new PaK Nests. So strap in, here we go, let's get it on. We're going to start with the gun here first. It got primed in black and then I airbrush base coated it with dark yellow. Okay. Now you don't have to do this step. This is an optional step if you don't want to, but what I'm doing here is I'm airbrushing on a couple of spots of reflective green for camouflage. Now you would be perfectly alright to not do this step. You could just leave it, your base, dark yellow, call it a day. Good stuff. But I really liked how it looked on the box. I think they did a wonderful job painting that for the photography they did, for the box sleeve cover. So I thought I'd do it too. And I'm also a big fan of emphasizing kind of the soot, so I airbrushed black on the muzzle there. With the airbrush you get a nice transition between the soot and the regular paint job. It definitely looks more natural that way than if you painted it on with a brush. You could also use MIG, black smoke pigment, if you wanted to instead. Completely up to you, whatever you want to do. Okay, now we're going to do what's called a pin wash carefully. I'm going to apply brown shade to all my like rivets, fine detail, anything I sort of want to put in shadow a little bit more. I'll go ahead and do this. Now, if you want to be more careful on this and be able to do this, I guess maybe a bit faster, possibly, but add extra steps, you could gloss varnish the entire gun and then kind of give it a full wash of this stuff, and that way the capillary action will force it all down. But if you're careful and you do it with a brush like this, you can skip that gloss varnish step and just paint it on just like this. And if any of this ends up kind of glossy looking, just apply some matte varnish to it. It'll be fine. Okay, now the ammo tray where you load the shells into it, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here and I'm going to paint that black, okay, right on the inside there, because we're setting up kind of a shadow, a black lining shadow. And then next I'll follow that up with some gunmetal gray and try to leave a thin black line to the left and to the right there. You see how that depth, you get that? It looks nice. Finally, to finish the gun up, you got to paint on Jeff's favorite color, German gray. So throw it right on there and paint the tires both sides. If you used blue tack like I did to hold it onto the card, don't forget to pull that off and do that. Now, onto the crew. Now, first off, I apologize for it being so dark, okay? But I'm doing the best I can with the camera I've got. So we're starting here with a black primer, obviously, and now we're painting on German field gray World War II onto the tunic and his trousers there. Now, you'll notice where the tunic meets the trousers, I've left a thin black line in there, and that's to suggest kind of shadow and the show clearly where the pants stop and the jacket begins. Okay, a lot of people call that black lining, but basically just go all around and catch all your uniform there. The top there, the uniform top, the jacket, you could also paint that as like a camouflage smock if you wanted to. That would look really good, but obviously there'd be a lot more investment of time on your part. Completely optional. I'll do my usual disclaimer while I'm finishing this up here and say this is only one way to paint this gun and crew. Okay, I tend to favor methods that use as few steps as possible and still get you a good result. Okay. All right, now what I'm doing is I'm actually mixing dark sand into the German field gray on my palette there, okay, to do a highlight. So mix that in until I'm happy, and then you get your highlight and your base coat, okay? And now we're going to apply that mixed color onto the raised edges, the creases in the cloth, the edges of the cuffs, just, places like you're seeing right here where you want to emphasize it a little bit and kind of, I guess, overemphasize in a way the light as it falls down on the miniature. When you're painting miniatures, these guys are, they're obviously small, a 15 millimeter scale here, and you need to exaggerate it a little bit. Otherwise, some of these subtle things that you're doing on these, you're just not going to see it at all especially when you're standing up in front of the wargaming table. But this is a quick step, and it'll add a little bit more, appeal to your miniatures. Okay, just get it on there. Places where you can highlight it where like a strap comes over the jacket, right along the edges of the strap there, go with black line, and then right on the edge of that paint your highlight, and it looks nice. Okay. All right, next, I'm going to use beige brown, and I'm going to use that as my base coat for my flesh. I'm going to use that on my the rifle stock, and I'm going to paint the lower half of the canteen with that color. Now, if you've got a copy of it, or pop by your local store and grab one if it's still available, the Art of War 2 has some great, color guides for painting German infantry, and many of our battle books that we've published also should give you this information as well. All right, so. But in many ways, I guess you could look at, if you care to, you could use this gun crew tutorial as a way to paint your late war German infantry. All right, you see here I'm painting the rifle stock with that. Careful to avoid the bolt handle and all the metal areas. Then finally, get that, finish that up there, and then finally at the end here, I'll hit the lower half of the canteen. Yeah, right there. Cool. Now, just like I did with the German field gray, I'm just going to mix some dark sand in once again. And this is optional, however much you want to do. If you want to do less and have the guy be really suntan, beach going guy, add more and make him, a pasty dude who spends all his time indoors, whatever you want to do. And just go ahead and, just like I'm doing here, paint that as a highlight. So emphasize, all of his thumb and his fingers, the raised areas, bridge of his nose, top of the cheeks, chin, all those areas, just to give you the suggestion of depth. It looks good. Yeah, just like that. Remember, try to leave some of your beige brown, like where the nose meets the rest of the face. Don't bother with doing anything over the eyes. Just leave that black, deep in shadow, dramatic. Highlighting the wood there on the rifle stock, and then don't forget to get your lower half of the canteen as well. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and paint German gray on his helmet, on the gas mask canister strapped on his back, and on all the metallic areas. The bolt handle, the barrel, the top part of the canteen there. And I'm also going to paint the projectile, the actual, the physical projectile of the ammo that he's got in his hand ready to load into the PaK 40. All right. Next, we're going to quickly grab our flat brown, and we'll paint the boots. Got those low-cut boots, late war ones. Then we're going to paint some brown shade on the rifle stock to give it some shadow and also differentiate the tone between the flesh and the canteen a little bit. And then finally, to finish this figure up, we'll go ahead and paint brass on the shell casing. Okay. Now, obviously, not all the crew are carrying these shells, but I wanted to paint this one so you could see the shell as well. Kind of rhymes. Well, there you go. That's the crew. Now, finally, let's get to the nest itself. It's been prime black, and then I base coated it with Model Air khaki brown with my airbrush. But you could also paint it with English uniform. And then next, you see me here giving it a vigorous dry brush with German camouflage beige. Now, the fade in and the fade out you're seeing there, that's just me reloading the brush. And, so you want to put some paint on the end of the brush, wipe most of it off on the tissue, and then do just like I'm doing here and vigorously brush it on there, okay? Using a big brush like this, you get it at a craft store, that helps you avoid streaks and patchiness. Makes the paint job really, really even, and it goes a lot faster. And I'm all about speed. Then finally, we'll do a second and final dry brush coat, and this is, we're using dark sand for this one, okay? This one's going to be a little bit lighter, not quite as heavy, and we're just using it to bring out all the wonderful detail that texture that's in that, okay? And you can see for yourself here just the difference it makes when you're doing that, okay? Try not to get too much on the walls of the pit. We're going to dry brush that separately, but be really, really aggressive with the kind of the sandy texture part. Thumbs up, good to go. All right, now I'm going to use a flat brush. You could also use a small dry brush if you want, but you want something basically with more control, and a flat one like this will be great. And go ahead and dry brush, or overbrush if you will, a little heavier, the walls of your gun pit, gun nest rather. Beige brown is the color I'm using here. Okay, using a flat one like this, which again you can get at a craft store, this is just going to give you more control. Okay, just make it a little bit easier. Now you notice I'm painting right there. There's a couple of empty shell casings laying on the ground there. Those aren't part of the resin, and I accidentally, a technical problem, didn't actually show myself painting them. And a little bit later in there, I'll explain the colors and stuff, but don't be alarmed if those shells aren't on the floor of your gun pit. Okay, now we're going to paint the ammo crates dark yellow. Now this ammo crate was a metal bit along with those shell casings before that's included with the box. It's optional. Okay, I glue one in place just for extra interest, but one of the pits, the one I'm painting here, has the ammo crates actually, sculpted in, if you will. Those. The other nest does not have these, so this will be a step when you paint that one that you can completely skip. Won't have to worry about it. Okay, now this here's what I was talking about. All I did is I took the shells, I cut the projectile end off of it, filed it, and then glued a couple of those down on the floor of the nest and painted them brass, and then painted black in the end to suggest an open, the open part of it. My apologies for not actually showing that to you in the video, but somehow it got crazy. You see, they're all painted there. All right, finally we're getting to the end here. We're going to go ahead and paint all the little rock clusters London gray. I did that instead of how they did it on the box sleeve cover, just to get some extra contrast so it wasn't so many light and dark earth tones. Just personal preference. If you want to go with a lighter color and paint them like dark sand and then maybe dry brush them with white, that works. That could work. But these are London gray is what I went with. Just be sure you get them all. Okay, last step, easy one. We're just going to take a small dry brush and we're going to dry brush all the rock clusters sky gray. Okay? And lo and behold, glue everything in place and presto, finished gun pit, easy, no problems. You can paint these in no time flat. All right, right here we've got the recipe tile. Here's everything you need to paint this. Pause the video here if you need to write this down. Thanks a lot for joining us. Really appreciate it. And be sure to tune in to Battlefront TV in the future for more hobby tutorials, unboxings, and all kinds of cool stuff. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.